Okay,
can we
Steve, it's
review
all
any of
yours.
these without, can we review any of these without people being here?
Mine.
We do have the attendees
There you go.
online.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
Did you, Christie?
Yes, confirmed.
Good deal. Let's call this meeting to order. First order of business is approval of the minutes from June 16th.
So moved.
They were awesome.
Thank you, George.
Motion and a second.
Who's the second?
Wendy
Is
seconded.
that Wendy? Yeah.
Oh, can you hear me? I motioned too. You can hear me, right?
Can't do both.
I hear
Okay.
you.
Bill, step up.
Okay, let's give me the motion and Wendy the second. I believe that's the way it unfolds.
Okay. I take the roll. King,
Yes.
Naylor,
Yes.
Childs.
Yes.
Okay. The special meeting from June 23rd involving Brick House. Any comments on wonderful long minutes for one presenter?
Sorry, I wanted to make sure I had
No,
everything.
that's good.
No, you got it all.
Good.
Jenny, we needed it.
Thank you.
all. We needed it all. We need it all again. No additions or corrections. I move that the meeting minutes be approved.
Second?
King,
Yes.
Naylor,
Yes.
Childs.
Yes.
Okay, moving on. We'll go down the list. We'll see who's here and who's not here in terms of attendees. Huntington Bank, 92 to 98 North Main Street, revise and resubmit.
Okay, we've got resubmission on siding from Huntington Bank. And I've got the plans up on the screen now.
I've identified one presenter. Dean, if you would also are also an attendee and would like to present, please use the raise your hand function in the Zoom platform so I can identify you and promote you to a panelist to join the discussion. We're working to get the presenters online. Mr. Weber, if you could please unmute and share your video.
Yeah, this is Jerry Weber. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Barely.
The original building, as I see it, and based on some photographs I've had, did not have any trim around the windows per se. It was the original was vinyl windows and vinyl siding. And then Dean at the contractor just replaced as is. And that's where the issue came up, is it still looked the same. So in order to bring it back to what, from the best of my knowledge and the best of my information that I could gather, what it would have looked like before the previous renovation kind of destroyed the detail. So we're going to leave the windows in place. The existing, now existing, it's a hardy board type cement siding with, that's been painted close to what was there before. And then we're adding some wider trim boards. They're solid. They're not built up out of extrusions or anything like that. It's a CertainTeed product. And they come in 5-inch or 4-inch and 6-inch. So we're putting on the CertaTrim J-Pocket trim board, which is 5/4 by 3.5. That will give a good reveal. and it would hide the J mold that was an objection previously. And that's basically it. So there are a couple of details in there. Every door opening, every window will receive this treatment. And we'd like to get your approval on that.
Can I ask, is Dean, is it Dean? Who's the contractor?
Dean Oriani.
I do not see a dean in the attendee list. We do have a few call-in listeners.
I think Dean was going to call in.
Okay, I will identify him that
Calling.
way. Dean, could you give me the last 4 digits of your phone number, please?
2670.
Thank you. You're welcome to join the conversation.
That's pretty much what Jerry had brought up, and then I had submitted the plans over to the Division of Compliance, Jacob Howdyshell. And like I said previously, they've been working remotely. It took some time. He did get back to me once I submitted the stamped drawings from Jerry, and he stamped his approval, which I had emailed over to Harry. And you'll see that
You need me to adjust the view on the screen, let me know.
you'll see that it was stamped approved by the Division of Industrial Compliance down in Columbus. So pretty much what Jerry just went over is what we would like to do to bring the appearance back by eliminating the J channel, putting trim pieces around all windows and doors and corners.
And you're not touching the facade below the roof line, existing roof line, the glass, the storefront?
No, that was as is. We didn't touch that.
What are you doing with the
It should look-
cornice returns on the facade?
We're planning on not leaving before Saturday.
Were we doing anything with that? I didn't see anything on the cornices, just windows and corners and doors. Doors, windows, corners.
Okay,
I didn't touch the cornice returns.
okay.
Is this, do we have a photograph of this before? What it looked like before the aluminum siding was replaced?
I believe Harry has those photos. I do not.
I'm looking for that right now,
You had that up
Okay.
previously.
like there and there.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That photo shows what was there before Dean started his work.
And then do we have one now? That same shot now? Because I'm having trouble with,
I don't think I have one now.
okay.
So the windows had already been replaced, or are they not being replaced? I wasn't sure about that. Are you saying that you're leaving the windows that had already been put in
Yeah, they have been replaced. Yes, replaced.
as part of this work?
Yes.
Except for the
Okay, so you're
storefront.
trying to go with the windows that you had put in without a permit. And that was part of the objection of the historic review of the work was that the vinyl windows were not an appropriate replacement for.
Well, the windows match the exact appearance as they had before that were put in. You couldn't tell the difference between the ones that were taken out and the ones that are in, other than these are
Were they
newer.
replacement windows?
Yes.
So they're not replacing the frame, they're replacing the
Sash.
sash.
Yeah, the window itself. The frames were trimmed out, but that's why we submitted the drawings to give it more of an appeal, curb appeal, I guess, that you were looking for, with the Serta trim to get rid of the J channels and to bring in the Serta trim around the windows, doors, and corners.
So it appears that there are sub-sills under the windows, and those are to remain. Oh, no, they're not. They're covered up. So as you're doing this 3.5 trim, are you did you submit a sill material? I didn't see that.
I don't see it called out in the drawings, but we can put the same product on the sills as we did with to match the trim around the windows.
Yeah, and we wouldn't want that. We would want a heavier projecting subsill, such as it'd be similar to an AZAC historic sill material, except
Okay.
that it would be, it could be by Certainteed. I'm sure they make a comparable product, but the scale of
Yeah,
it,
that would,
about 2 inches high, is more of a between 1.5 to 2 inch thick material, which would be a
Right.
historic look trim. I just didn't want this suddenly to pop up with picture frame. We definitely don't want a picture frame appearance on these windows.
Jerry, do you know what we're talking about?
Yeah, I understand. Was it Phil, was that you talking?
It's me, Phil. Yeah.
Yeah, the picture frame look. And I think
Oh,
it was.
No, we don't want the picture frame look. We want
Yeah,
the casing on 3 sides with a windowsill, 2-inch windowsill underneath it,
Yes,
on the bottom.
And
okay.
And I also, I mean, I guess I'm going to offer up to the board. I mean, that typically, like underneath that vinyl, one would think that there would be 4.5 inch wide actual, casing, jam casing, head
Yes.
casing.
Yes,
Not
because there's
3.5.
a historic image in the Chambers Murphy report. If you go back to that, it's also in the design guidelines. If anybody has those open on page 3, you can get, the windows are kind of cut in half, but you can get a good read on what the historic detailing was. We don't want to go back to the way it looked when you started this particular project. We're trying to take it back to its historic appearance or something historically compatible. And it does look like there's, 4-inch casing on it on the 3 side and then a projecting smaller sill. And that's what we would be trying to get back to.
Yeah,
So you
that,
can use the 6-inch product and rip it down, or sometimes you can actually find, nominal 5-inch product that is that dimension, which is nice.
I think there's a basic misunderstanding in that, well, that was there before and we're going to leave it, or that was there before and we're just going to copy with the same thing. The bastardization took place, 30 years ago. We're undoing that. We're going to do it right this time, according to the guidelines.
yeah, that's what I'm attempting to do, Steve.
Okay, but I heard several comments about the pork chops, like, well, they were already there, and
Well,
might be-
we understand that was already there and whatnot, and our exercise right now is to try and answer your concerns and bring it back to what it was like before.
very good. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's what we're trying to do.
The struggle is that there was a facade, there was a parapet wall on the original building that hid that gable
What,
end.
like a false front?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. If you look at the historic, there's a sketch.
Oh, there was this false, that's right. There was a false front. Okay. I
So
remember.
when they revealed the 512, whatever 412, whatever pitch that is,
Mhm.
in the 60s or whenever they did it, those pork chops were added. Now, what do we do to fix it? Is the question. We can't go back and say, well, there was a 4-inch or 12-inch cornice up there. We don't know. There wasn't anything up there. There was an Italianate parapet facade. So how far back do we want them to reach? Or how do
I
we want them
think-
to recreate?
The general rule is that once they touch it, we have purview over having some kind of input on this. And you are, as I understand it, you have redone the facade siding, all of the siding.
Yes. they have.
Yes.
Okay, so that's been touched, which I think opens the door to a discussion on that cornice return. We don't have to make them put an element back, but I do think we have to, that we have purview to look at something as to whether it's proportionate and compatible with what's going on. And those cornice returns, are glaringly off proportionally. And I think we should have a discussion on how we could improve that. The pitch looks funny. We're not going to really touch the pitch because that's structural in there. But I do think I would like to hear some opinion, maybe Bill, proportion and scale on those cornice returns at the,
Well, the aluminum itself is a poor material choice to convey. I think what
absolutely.
basically happens is you've taken it away from the Italianate. Now you want basic Western Reserve compatible detailing, and which is, not incredibly difficult to achieve. You would need AZAC or comparable, so cellular PVC material crown underneath there versus that kind of aluminum scoop it's got, and then that you would need to return in a Western Reserve compatible manner on the eve returns. And that's something that could be submitted to us and we could review it. I mean, as of now, we really only got the submittal for the jam and head. And
Can we
actually
see
in the
the
head
image
detail,
Again, of the facade. Excuse me, I'm sorry, George. I just want to see the image of the existing image of the facade with.
Yeah.
Sorry, George, go ahead.
that's okay. So I mean, that could be submitted. We could, we're saying we'd like to bring this back to something that is historically compatible. I mean, I think it's easy to either do a modified kind of simplified treatment or ask for actual Western Reserve detailing. I think it just depends how far, we're asking the applicant to go with that. And I'm sure that, this architect is capable of showing us those details.
Because I don't think we have any overhang at the roof line. I can't tell in this image because we're at that angle where the post is in the way.
There's enough roof there to get a crown underneath it.
Is there enough
Because
roof? Okay.
There's a
So-
big scoop there. You can get a crown underneath there.
Yeah, so you need that, that crown molding, that raking on there. And then the cornice return, just scale that in better.
Are you
And then
suggesting
window-
they should do a sub rake and a freeze board around the whole building and that kind of thing? Because that
You could do it if you needed to tie it in. That again, I would defer to the architect to look at that and kind of scale it in, because
Right.
we are trying to work with what the existing
right.
condition is, but try to come up with something compatible without rebuilding the whole false front Italianate style on the front of it, which is always an option if they want to go there, but I'm not suggesting that they have to go back to that.
I think
And
there,
then sorry, I just want to go back to the head trim for a second. That that concealed head trim with the vinyl siding coming down behind it, tucking underneath it on the head of the window. I just have a question about water management on that. I've typically seen versus that a solid head trim that's flashed out over it. So pushing the water over and out. you usually have like a modified, you don't really have a J mold as the bottom condition. It's like another type of vinyl trim that they use at the bottom. So that's more of a technical issue of whether you can use that shadow molding on the head. And I'm curious, like, you know, what people think, but I'd be very concerned that you're running the water back actually behind the trim with that detail.
This is Jerry again. The CertainTeed product does come in a solid rectangle, like a normal board, and that wouldn't be a big issue to swap that out and put some flashing at the top.
Yeah, it might
I
perform
agree
better.
that you have that issue at the top.
AZAC makes a drip edge that fits over the top of that as well.
Yeah.
So
Right.
the other issue we haven't spoken about is at least before, when it was aluminum, they had small white corner boards, and now they're, you know,
Mhm.
I don't know, 2-inch maybe green vinyl corner
Oh.
boards.
Those are
We're
submitted.
replacing the corner board
Yeah.
with the CertainTeed corner product that's solid.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So
and I
you'd
think
ask for
it's-
that to match the
4
dimension. of
inch,
the front.
3.5 or 4 inch dimension.
Right.
Yeah.
4.5.
Yeah.
I just had a couple. Comments. This rake board, which this is your rake board, this is your rake trim board. This rake board should be the same equal distance as this. This is typically 5.5. This should be 5.5. This return is way too long. A return proportion wise, if you have a freeze here, if the freeze from the top of the rake down to the bottom of the freeze is 1, then the distance from the quarter into the end of the return should be 1.5 for proportion's sake. There should be what's called a bed mold, would be traditionally taken down to this point. If this is a 4, 5, 12, let's say this pitch is 5/12, you always take half of the pitch. So this return should be, if this is 5, this should be 2.5. And then typically what you do is in a classical return, you would take a, which you probably can't do in this regard, but you take a crown, and when you come down to the bottom, you do what's called splitting the fillet, which is the bottom cove that would run across here. So if this really needs to be looked at, and this rake trim board should be also, if this is 5.5, that would be historically 5.5. So this really be nice if they could study this. If they've gone this far, why not just to get that front facade in downtown Chagrin Falls, just to make that look, that little bit of detail, I think would go a long way.
Yeah, there's a lot of funky stuff going on around the back of it with the additions that were added and low slope roofs and all that. But this facade could really be dressed up and add a lot to the character of the building.
I mean,
Good
it's
point. Time
not a
moving on.
Greek revival building. I wonder as well, I propose you might be able to just remove those returns. But you don't have any roof eave overhang, so it might look funny. And that again is for the architect to take a look at. Also, I wanted to understand, is the siding, the replacement siding that's on the building as of recently, is that hardy board or vinyl siding?
On which
The
building?
siding on the building now
I know.
is vinyl.
What- Yeah. So, and that was what was put on before you came to visit us, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is a National Register district prominently on Main Street in Chagrin Falls, and I would have very much voted against vinyl siding going on this building. I realize it's already on the building, but because of the importance of the location, I would propose that that be replaced with a hardy board material, and as well the windows. My understanding is they were replaced with vinyl windows. We would have had those done in aluminum clad or wood windows. And I would propose that those windows be done in aluminum clad or wood.
You know, this, again, I think it's a fairly important building downtown. If you're going to replace this with windows, I mean, I don't want to name products and stuff, but Pell Reserve makes an incredible historic window that matches all the detail. The Secretary of Interior standards they work with in DC to get that window just perfect. And that would be beautiful to put on this, at least on this front facade that everyone sees, would be a great window just for those 3 double hungs, for example.
Yes, just the facade. Is that part of the proposal today, or I haven't seen if there was any
I think the
citation
proposal is that
done,
we
or
decide
I'm not sure
all.
where we are procedurally.
I think right now we were trying to work with what we have product-wise on the building by detailing window trim, door trim, and corners. By trying to get the appearance that you're looking for. I mean, we can work with the front street side to, I guess, do what you were looking at. What do you think, Jerry, as far as street side only?
Yeah, we can work on the street side and try and bring back.
Still keep the window and door trims and corners for the rest of the building, but to give that appearance that they're looking for street side.
Yeah, that's something we can do.
For the windows, and then as far as the hardy board goes, I would propose that that be placed on areas that have a public sight line. So that would be the north and south elevations and the facade elevation, because I believe that's where, did you replace the siding all the way around the building?
Everything's.
Yeah, it was done all the way around.
Yeah.
And
Well, then you'd want to
cleaned
be
up the
consistent.
restaurant side on the south side.
You'd want to be consistent then.
So you're looking to take all the siding off and putting hardy back?
That's what I propose.
That's correct.
And
Yeah,
then
just like
aluminum
starting all
clad
over
or
again.
wood windows on the facade. I would,
It's disappointing and
it's
somewhat
very, mhm.
barely understandable that you made one phone call to the state, they didn't answer your phone and off you went. So the redo, that's not on us.
Well, I sent everything since then and they signed off and
That's-
approved
well,
what I had sent
They're
down.
not in charge of our architecture. And while we're on this subject, were your guys working unauthorized after the last meeting? Were they working on the Huntington Bank building itself?
They were cleaning up the bank, yes.
Cleaning up, you mean
Cleaning
putting aluminum over everything? Is that what you mean?
On the
by
south.
cleaning up? Yeah, and who authorized that?
Well, that wasn't, that's all to come down.
Who authorized it?
Well, no one, as far as we just,
Somebody
You
hired
were-
you.
Somebody sent the
well,
crew out that
Huntington,
day.
they were looking for a maintenance building, and that's what we thought our best solution was. But I had spoken with Harry, and that is to come down and be addressed. We're working on the Sassy Cat building right now. The other building, the trim coil is to come down and have the appearance that it had before. And I had spoken to Harry about that. We haven't got to it yet, but that is, whatever was put up is coming down. And we're gonna work with what we have by keeping the cornices and crown and all the reveals as is. So right now I'm trying to get one problem solved with Chagrin Falls and keep the board happy and Huntington happy. With taking care of the Sassy Cat building, I call it.
Huntington
The
did
other-
a
the
very
Huntington
nice
building will
job
be
of
addressed.
redoing the bank, the existing bank building. And it seems to be a little foggy exactly how this, we'll call it a repair, came to be. I'm disappointed Harry's not here. I'd like to hear what he has to say about this sort of approval. Why don't you let us know what you're gonna do to the Huntington Bank building? And then let's
So
revise.
that's all gonna come down. I had spoken with Harry, he didn't like what was put up, and That is coming down. And we're going to keep the appearance as it is. Whatever was covered up is coming down. My crew
That's great.
hasn't had a chance to get there yet, but it's going to look just as it did before, either by being painted or replacing any rotted cornices with a different product without changing the integrity of the building, keeping all the architectural details.
All that material was replaced, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. I don't even understand why it was that you were hired to do anything. But I would expect that.
Well, the bank building is, yeah, that will come down.
You pull all the staples, you repair the damage that your guys did, you repaint it.
Right. To bring it back to the appearance as it was. So on the other hand, now the Sassy Cat building, I need to know what you need done from either Jerry or myself, so I can keep Huntington happy.
Great. I think Jerry's in a position to present us with something so it's clear to all parties. Why don't we revise and resubmit on the Sassy Cat building? And I would put that in the form of a motion.
Second.
Let's get a shopping list. Jerry's paying close attention. I know Jerry, but what would we have here?
So I restudy of the window raking and cornice return and corner details. I had a quick question here. I'm looking at the application on the screen and you're talking about door trim as well. So you are doing first floor work?
Probably on the
Very-
sides.
Floor is,
And that's on the sides and the back,
On the sides and the back.
nothing on the front.
Okay.
Yes.
So
So I think it's restudy of the window head, jamb, and subsill details, corner boards, rake, trim, and cornice returns. Eve returns.
And I'm
And-
suggesting that you refer to the photographs if there's something not covered by those few notes in this discussion, that would be a guide, our guidelines and that photograph.
The historic survey, yeah.
And general guidelines on Western Reserve detailing.
are we putting in the motion anything about hardy board siding and window material, or will that be presented in the next?
Well, let's revise and resubmit, but we're suggesting hardy board around the house, all the way around the building. And, but most of the detailing is on the front.
Okay.
And then the windows, you're suggesting
Ready for the vote?
authentic historic windows on the front facade. Is that what I heard, Wendy?
Yeah, compatible, historically compatible, yeah.
Historically compatible windows on the front facade. Second floor.
Need a second?
I think Bill seconded, but I'll
Oh,
second.
did he? I'm sorry.
I think so.
Yes.
Yes, I had Childs on a second. Joan, do you have all the comments from the motion?
Pretty much, I think. I'll
I'm
be
backing
listening
you,
to
I'm
this.
backing you up, Joan. I'm backing you
Thank
up.
you. Wendy and I have it, Rob. Thanks.
Okay, sounds good. All right, we're ready for the vote then. Childs,
Yes.
Naylor,
Yes.
King.
Yes.
Okay. Ready for the next project at 42 Church Street?
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Jerry. Thank you, Dean.
bye. Okay, take care.
Uh, 42 Church Street, Bob Tull is the owner, applying for a fence installation in proximity to a historical structure. Christie, do you want to see if we
Yes,
have
I
anybody?
am looking at my attendee list. If the presenter for the current project would use the raise your hand function in the Zoom platform, I can allow you to join the conversation. There. Thank
Acme
you.
Fence, Mike Clayton. Mike?
I don't have a Mike Clayton.
His phone number ends in 0456, I think that says.
I don't have a Mike Clayton, but I did have Sue Zala raised her hand, so I will promote her to a panelist. Sue, let us know when you're online.
That was not intentional. I was just checking to see where the raise your hand was. So I'm muting again.
Thank you. That's okay. We can, let me go back to the attendees and take a look. We have one call-in attendee. Are you presenting on this project? Phone number ending in 8418.
I am not.
Thank you.
Okay.
Are you?
It appears
Well-
42 Church Street is unrepresented. I suggest we move on.
Yeah, we need to see what it is that they mean by ornamental fence too, when they,
Correct. They need to resubmit with actual elevations and details.
or at least photographs and brochures.
Something.
Something.
I'm making notes here, hold on.
I do have a phone number for this presenter, but I did not have an email address. I'm going to mute myself and reach out and see if they can join us at the end of the meeting. Is that acceptable?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we can move on to the next item, 103 South Main. And this is another fence in proximity to a historical structure.
I'm bringing Don on as a panelist. Don, I've asked that you unmute and start your video. There you are.
Sophia Lukaj is the property owner and Auburn Fence is the contractor.
Are there any other attendees
Morning, Don.
representing this project? Don, we'll need you to unmute, please.
How's that?
There we go.
Morning, Don.
Morning.
South Main.
Can we run through the application, or is there something more descriptive here?
Yeah. Here's Harry's review on this sheet. There's some information on the exact fence.
Is that a dark bronze, dark brown color, Don?
Yeah, yep, it is to match what she has.
Oh, so you're extending an existing fence?
Yeah, actually, we're moving some and adding a little bit too.
I'm just scrolling through so I can see what we have here. Application, kind of a sketch, property line sketch here, and then a little better design here on the.
Main Street.
So could you, where is the existing fence?
About halfway up the house there where it struts out. I don't know if I can show you. I don't know how I can show you.
There's like a outdoor seating area or
Yeah,
fireplace or something?
It's at the back side of that now. And she wants to move it to the front side so they can enjoy the rest of the yard with their dog.
And this is way up on the hill, right? Or not way up, but it's up a hill, pretty steep hill.
Yeah, it's up on the top. If you look at that one picture from the street, there's a wall and then it goes up pretty steep up. And then this will be at the top, but back about to the front face of the house, which is back probably 30 feet from, you won't see it from the street.
Yeah,
And the height is
5 foot.
5 foot.
can't do 5 foot in the front yard, can you? Can you?
They're
What is it?
behind the front building line. I think
That's
that's the.
No, it's back behind that.
Even though it's facing the street?
Pardon?
Even though it's facing the street, I thought, we didn't allow anything facing the street to be 5 foot. Rob, you're gonna have to
No.
step in here.
That's not right.
Let me look that up.
Yeah,
This
Front
is on the
yard.
south side of the building.
Front yard is 42 inches.
Right,
Pardon?
right. Yeah, the question I have is the facing the street part.
I think
Yeah, let me, I'm looking that up right now.
This is on the south side of the building.
On the south side of the building, but it faces, it's running along South Main Street.
It's parallel to the
Correct.
street. The
Yeah.
question is, it's behind
South side
the,
of the
behind the front of the house.
Yep.
So it's technically within the side yard.
Mhm.
And I believe that means it can be higher than
Could be
the,
6.
than anything that's within the front yard, which would be knocked down.
Can you go back to the site plan?
I have the answer on height in residential districts. In front yards, fences shall not exceed 3.5 feet in height above finished grade in the front yard in residential districts.
Well, they don't have a front yard.
It's behind the front. That's what that, there's a line on the drawing that I think Harry wrote, made. There you go.
Waterwood.
Front
Okay.
building line. So that's the front yard.
So this would be considered the front yard over here if this is
Right.
fronting the street, yes. That's considered the front yard.
Mhm.
But as soon as you go back 6 feet or 5 feet, it's no longer front yard. That-
You're in the side yard.
You go right to the front.
Well, as much vegetation is there, I don't particularly care, but it seems pretty close to front yard to me.
Is it
It's,
a one?
it's a little outside of this purview, but this is the house that had the front wall last year and quite a bit of work. And it has a almost perpetual, not this week, of course, but a perpetual wet spot caused by that work. I don't know what or whatever, but it drains and has a perpetual puddle on the sidewalk, which is ice in the wintertime. Been recognized by somebody because they set it off with orange cones. But I think we have to address that, part of this project.
Are you talking about the work that was done on this, on what was Barbara Christensen's house next?
Well, a combination of that and the wall, they redid the drainage or something because there's a perpetual puddle on the sidewalk, except on a week like this.
Well, just getting back to where we're supposed to be, I mean, wouldn't that be something that either Harry would address as from the building?
Yeah, Rob's sitting here and
Yes.
they're sitting here. I brought it up. It's not part of this project. And we should
Yes, no,
perhaps-
we're making notes on that to follow up. I know that Harry has been aware of some sort of drainage issue in that area.
Okay,
And I think there is an issue with the availability of the storm sewer to capture that, but
I see. All right, thank you. Sorry for the confusion.
make a note on it.
I have a question. Is the house a 2-story structure or a 1-story structure in the front where that red line is?
I'd call it a 1.5. It was originally like a Greek group, or not a Greek, Gothic revival
Gothic revival, yeah.
structure.
It's an
And
imposing 1.5. It's a big house.
yeah, and it's up 10, 15 feet, so
10
that-
feet above the road.
I mean, I'm okay with this fence.
me too.
Yeah, I move to approve unless Doug or, not Doug, Steve or Wendy have any.
No, I think it's fine. It's, I'm glad they have a gate there because if somebody wants to cliff dive, they'll have a way to do it.
Second,
Okay. Childs,
Yes.
Naylor,
Yes.
King.
Yes.
All right, you're good to go, Don. Are you doing the next one, Don?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, Don's still with us.
Okay, this is 44 West Washington Street. This is another fence permit for Firehammer fence in proximity to historical structure. Let's run through the.
It is replacing a dilapidated chain link fence. It's pretty well wooded where the whole thing goes. It does match the neighbors, two of the neighbors, it matches exactly. And it's not a front yard.
But you're not going down the property line, or the existing fence doesn't follow the property line?
It does a certain way back. It's kind of hard to draw it on there.
Yeah, okay.
And then the rest in the back is ravine.
Yeah,
It's pretty
it's down
close
to
to
the,
it.
down to the river, right, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's running along the top of slope, basically.
Yeah, yep.
Well, and it's only 4 feet high and it's an open metal ornamental. So
Yep.
I see no problem with this one either.
So,
In the backyard, if they could be, it's much friendlier than a 6 foot tall board on board.
and they have a nice view, so.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to block it.
I move to approve.
I second it.
Okay. King,
Yes.
Naylor,
Yes.
Childs.
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's interesting that this map is from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. It looks a lot like the Chagrin Falls.
All right. And Joan, just confirming you got all the information from both 44 and West Washington and 103.
Yes, yes, thank you.
Okay.
Rob, this is Christy.
Yes.
I do have Mike Clayton on the line. He is a call-in listener who is ready to speak about 42 Church Street, the second item on our agenda. Can we fit him in now?
That would be up to the chairman, Steve King.
Sure, let's go.
Okay, I will allow him to talk and let's confirm he can hear us.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay,
This is
thanks, Mike.
42 Church Street, property owner Bob Tull. And this is a
Yeah.
fence application in proximity to a historical structure.
Bob, we need to understand what you're up to and what it looks like and a little bit of a plan so we know exactly what a 4-foot aluminum ornamental looks like.
It looks like wrought iron fence. It's about 4-inch spacing, 5/8-inch pickets, and 2-inch posts. It's all black. And
And
we're removing and replacing an existing fence.
What's the existing fence?
Pardon?
What is the existing fence? You're replacing?
Chain link.
Okay.
And do the pickets go through that top rail and project upward? Is it a picket fence or is
No,
were they
no.
dying onto the top rail so that you got
There's the top rail, yes. There's a pinch point underneath the top rail.
and the top rail is also a square 2-inch rail? What is it?
Yes. No, the top rails is a 5/8 inch. I'm sorry, it's 1 inch by 1 1/8 inch.
Top rail, bottom rail,
I think
5/8-inch pickets. No,
diagram
no
or
other.
diagram or photograph would be in order because we think we know what you're doing and we'd like to know what you're doing.
Well, it's the same as we did last year. We did the sides last year and up front. Now we're doing the back.
Oh, so we already approved the fence that's there, you're just adding to it?
Yes.
Now we're talking. Okay.
Now we're talking.
And the whole thing's 4 feet high. And
Yes.
this essentially in the rear, well, side and rear yards of the house.
Well, this is, yes, side and rear.
So what you have marked on your plan as existing fence, looks like it comes straight off the back of the garage to the rear lot line. And it comes down the opposite side. And now you're adding another, adding fence across the rear and down, extending it further down the sideline to the, about halfway down the house.
To the chimney, maybe?
To a
Yeah,
chimney
it's to the chimney.
with a
Mhm.
gate. Okay.
Yes.
I mean, it's
Me-
underrepresented, but I also think it is not problematic, especially if it's matching an existing fence.
Yeah,
that
I think if we
approved.
just put in the motion to match existing fence, that'll cover the design without having an image.
I'm out of town, so I haven't looked at this. So the next door, the point of the historical structure, which could be anywhere on this street, from the street, it looks appropriate. Or doesn't look at all for that much.
Good comments.
So I'll make a motion to approve to match design of existing fence.
I second it.
Okay, Naylor,
Yes,
King,
Hmm?
Childs.
Yes.
All right.
Okay. We can move to 17 River Street, Rick Duty, proposing 2 signs, one front facing a building and one side facing a building. Sign permit.
I have a Willow Leaf Studios that I've asked to become a participant. If you could unmute yourself to speak. If there are any other attendees representing this project, please raise your hand via the Zoom platform. Willow Leaf
Excuse me?
Studios, will you give us a sound check, please? I see that you're unmuted, but we can't hear you.
Or see you.
I don't see that they have a video option, but we should be able to hear them. But we cannot.
They might not be in front of their screen at this point. Give them a second, maybe defer this. Is Rick here?
I don't see Rick on the line. I see Rick Siegfried. I do not see Rick Duty on the line.
Maybe Rick Siegfried would like to comment. I mean, this is part of his whole mix.
I will ask him to unmute, perhaps, if he has a comment.
Here we go.
Okay, I am unmuted.
Rick, do you have anything to say on this project?
Yeah, I mean, we weren't the sign designers, but obviously we've been part of the process through the whole thing. And I think they're pretty simple, basic signs. They make.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, and I see that you took the sign off the rivers facing side of the building.
Facing River Street.
Yeah, and facing the river and moved it around the corner. So
Right.
you can see it from the bridge, but not necessarily from the,
Right.
okay.
I mean, if this sign meets zoning, I think aesthetically it's perfectly acceptable.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree too. I move to approve.
I'll
Second.
second that motion.
Oh, you guys are fast this morning. Thanks.
Naylor,
Yes.
Childs,
Yes.
King.
Yes.
All right.
Rick, good job pinch hitting.
Hey, no problem. I'm actually just watching in this morning, but you know, I did one of these for 2.5 hours last night. Moreland Hills.
Can't get
Great way
enough
to
of that.
spend a
It's
Monday.
fun.
I heard they're really tough over there.
Moreland Hills is exhausting. It's exhausting, Rick.
Yeah, well, you and I were both on one a couple weeks ago, George. So
Yeah.
they're thorough.
They're thorough.
I'm glad we could unmute you so you didn't blow a fuse.
No, I'm not blowing any fuses over this stuff.
No,
anymore.
he's gonna go
Not
back
yet.
back to the beach there.
Yeah. Oh, there I am.
Okay, if we're ready to move on to 83 North Main Street, Township Hall. They're proposing an exterior alteration of the side steps to the basement on the side of the building. And I'm just running through the information here. There's a history on the Township Hall. Get into some plans hopefully here.
I've invited multiple members to become panelists. They should be showing up. There we go. We have Sue, John, and Tom.
Yep. I represent RSA Architects, and Tom and John, the clients.
Sue, do you know if Jen McKee was going to join today? I don't see her as an attendee.
I don't know. We would have to ask Tom about that. He's on the board, but I know that at least 2 people were going to join.
Yeah, I don't think Jen is going to attend.
Yeah,
Okay.
she's not going to attend.
Okay, thank you.
Would you like to explain the project?
Well, basically, it's an infill of an unused set of stairs. Egress is completely fine from the basement as is with the 3 remaining exits, so we're not concerned about that. And basically, reading through this historical report, the word symmetry was used over and over and over, and I think the original intent of this facade to be is symmetrical. So basically, what we're doing is we're making it symmetrical. So filling in that stair, and then the landscaping to the 2 sides of the main monumental stair will be symmetrical.
Can you just talk about why you want to do it?
They just don't use the stair anymore. They would like the front of the building to look nicer. And I think that the landscaping on the left is a little bit overgrown, so they were thinking of removing it and replacing it. So at this point, they can make the whole front look nice, and so the portion of the sidewalk to the left, if you go one more, go to the next drawing. That's the life safety, yeah. You can see where you can flip back and forth, but you can see where a portion of the infill will be sidewalk to match sidewalk, and a portion of the infill will be landscaping to match landscaping. So the 2 sides will be cement.
Seems like a nice solution.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I move to approve. I think it's a nice solution, and it's an improvement. I move to approve it.
Second.
King,
Yes.
Naylor,
Yes.
Childs.
Yes.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Yep,
Thank you. Have a nice day.
You too.
Joan, you got all the information?
Yes, it was a long one.
Okay. Do we need to take a break now, or do we, should we keep going?
Yes, we could take a quick break. That would be great. 2
Okay.
minutes.
Is that okay, Steve?
No.
Quick break.
Okay.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, are we good to go here?
Looks like we need to wait for George, Rob.
Okay. Okay.
All here?
And we're back.
Okay, this next project is sublot 13 in the Falls Walk subdivision. This is an application for a single-family home and a vacant lot in this subdivision. I did have a note from Harry. He wanted me to reiterate that the covered screen porch in this house will have to remain open and cannot be enclosed since it encroaches into the rear setback. And that was a requirement of all of the buildings in this subdivision, from what I understand. And I've got the view from the street up now. Christy, do you have anyone from this project?
We do. We have on the line Tom and
Hey,
Tammy
Gary.
and Gary. I'm
Morning.
looking to see if Neil is joining as well. Gary, do you know if Neil is joining?
I do not know if he is joining. I would
Okay,
think
I'll
that he
keep a
would,
lookout.
but he might not be.
Okay, I'll keep a lookout for him, and if I see him, I'll promote him to a panelist.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Who's going?
We're
Billy?
interested in the
George?
presentation.
Yeah, you guys start.
Well, Tom and Tammy are on the line, who are the owners, I believe. This is the lot on the cul-de-sac in between 12 and 14. The house is somewhat modeled after, at least from a floor plan standpoint, from my old house and sublot 28, which is the brick house. But obviously it can't look like the rest, so we changed the elevation. And it did go through the design review committee for Falls Walk and was approved unanimously with a couple, I had suggested some changes before it went to it, which Mark had made. And then they added some fenestration in the basement, which helped out, though I think it's pretty good.
I guess to just start the conversation, in looking at the front, elevation, I would say I appreciate the fact that the garage is got that step back in it, so it kind of separates those doors, and it's much more of a secondary element. And the dormer above the garage door, double dormers, maybe I don't love the thing about that I'm a little worried about is the height of the dormer below the windows might be a little much. And it's already pushed back from the front wall of the house, which I think is great. If we went back 6 more inches and that got a little lower, it might help it. And I'm also a little worried about the panel material above the windows and in the pediment. Whether that is pretty big to be flat panel. I think that is reflective though of probably several other houses in Falls Walk.
Yep.
Everything else on the front, the arch is the other question. whether that's okay. I mean, obviously that's like a stylistic departure from Western Reserve, and that was explained a little bit in the application. I'm not a huge fan of this right side elevation, just the 2 gables. I know that we are breaking down what would have been a very big gable. But maybe it's just because I want something on the 2nd floor. Maybe if we just stuck a window or centered the 3 windows on that secondary gable and popped some glass or something up above on that very large kind of, in the triangle up above, then that would solve that issue. And I like the other side and rear elevations. I thought they were fine. So those are my thoughts on it. Just handing
So
those.
yeah, and that originally didn't have even the gable end vent. I think the problem that exists if you go to the floor plan, those windows, the 2 right windows are in the bedroom, and they're separated enough to get the bed in between. So we can't really center the center window. So if we put a window up in that gable end, it would be offset from the left window of the bed, if looking at that elevation. I mean, maybe instead of a gable end vent, or a triangular gable end vent, maybe you end up with a vertical vent up a little bit higher, so you drop your eye a little bit and you don't have as much real estate.
I think there might be a way to cleverly deal with the windows in the master. I understand the problem you're facing on that. But
Right.
I'd almost rather have a centered window up above that doesn't quite align below than nothing.
Yep.
Bill might have an idea on that too.
Yeah,
Or Phil, yeah.
yeah, adding in I'm not sure whether first of all, I kind of like the fact that you've broken down what was going to be a big wide gable by pushing it out a little bit.
Right.
I think it helps. I always struggle with exact symmetry when I know that no one is ever going to see this from the standpoint of a 2-dimensional elevation.
Right.
And you can't get far enough from this house to notice it any other way. So
The neighbor.
I think your comments on the front elevation, George, I'm struggling with the distance between the top of the garage doors and the roof line, that proportion. I mean, maybe taller doors or something would help break that down. And I agree with you on the dormer that there's too much space below it.
Yeah, I would agree with George. I would think that if you move that back 6 inches and you had equal on the sides and the bottom. And then I also agree with him, and I didn't notice it before, that is a big panel. And I think if we added a frieze behind the crown, that would break up that a huge amount of real estate, because there's
Yeah,
frieze, obviously rake frieze everywhere in the house.
Sub break. Yep. That'd be nice.
Yeah. I think that would help a lot. And I think you're right. Moving it back 6 inches would make that all equal and make it look a lot better.
Yeah. And it's already off the front wall, so it should
Right.
be.
Yeah. It should not make it. And it's an attic, so it really shouldn't make any difference.
Just teeny little tweaks.
Yep.
Yeah, I think overall, that's a tough site as far as with the pie shaped. I think the overall, starting with massing and composition, I think it's well done, is breaking up the forms and the massing to get it into that site. I think the facades work good and the fenestration. I studied this quite a bit on that floor plan where the windows are with the master bedroom, and I can see the difficulty. So I don't have a problem with those being a little off center. That's a hard way to solve that. As far as putting a vent or a window in that side, I mean, you could, I could go either way on that. I think it's fine even with the triangle. Again, you're never gonna, I mean, it's a little bit of real estate there, but maybe you do put a rectilinear vent just to break up the facade. I agree with the dormer, bringing that up. The front entry with the arch, that's always tough with an arch. Usually what you do is you call it stilt the arch, which means you go straight, then curve the arch instead of going into the side, but that's tricky with that pediment. But overall, I think it's well done, and I move to approve.
As noted.
As noted, yeah, with some of the,
Right.
I think they're tweaks.
It's a motion for preliminary approval, right? This is preliminary, so second.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, Naylor,
Yes.
Childs,
Yes.
King.
Yes.
Okay.
Have a wonderful day, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gary.
All right. Take care.
Okay, next on the list. Next on the list is 35 Maple Street, the Junker residence. They're proposing the removal of a garage door, some door and window changes, and a new deck in the rear of house with some interior renovation.
Rob, I'm sorry to interrupt. This is Christy. Neil from the previous project has raised his hand. Could I allow him to comment before we move on?
Sure.
Neil, I've unmuted you if you have some comments.
Are you there? I mean, I was here that whole time. It was, as you can imagine, very frustrating. And if I could have a little update, and I'm sorry you're looking at my cat Tippy, but he's better looking than I am. I sat here the whole time from 8:30, and I tried to raise my hand, but I was not able to join the meeting.
Neil, this is Christy. I'm the moderator of the meeting, and I have been monitoring the attendee list. I'm sorry that you experienced some sort of confusion. I did not see your name on the list. I've been looking at the list the whole time. I'm not saying that you weren't there. I just wonder if something technically was going on in the program. So my apologies.
I believe I know what happened. I actually gave the list of the attendees to Katie. However, originally they had Saffron Studios, plural, as the email. And as of late afternoon yesterday, I asked for another invite because I hadn't seen one, and I got one from Christy.
Yep.
And I was pressing the button and I was able to join visually, but I was not able to raise my hand.
Well, that's a shame. Neil, luckily it doesn't sound, I mean, I think where you're heading with this, you don't have any heavy lifting to do. We weren't really reconfiguring or messing with the house too much. So, you know, you're going to come back for a final. So I'm sure.
And I'm sure that Tom and Tammy and Gary can give me their notes. Unfortunately, I wasn't taking notes because I was frantically trying to join the meeting. I would like it, George, if you could, we could go over that entry, that dormer, because we've played around with that dormer over the right-hand garage. If you could help me understand where that kind of your comments and those of the committee members was leading.
I'll try and summarize a couple comments. Pushing that dormer back would allow there to be less field or less siding underneath the windows by 6 or 8 inches. We're saying if maybe the sides and the below get to be about the same. Got a steep enough roof, we're not really worried about snow on that one. And then the pediment triangle above, which is saying and you've got a smooth material pediment, if you add in the subrakes that are typical at the rest of the house, that'll really make that look smaller. And I think that comment applies also to above the entry.
As far as the fenestration, were there any comments?
Just potentially studying the side fenestration, on the right side elevation, 3 windows. Yeah, but ultimately the board was pretty comfortable as a group with them being off center. So studying them, those guys can fill you in, but no one said you had, if you could put a window up above, great. And if you can't, everyone said that is, you know.
Can I go back? I'd like to talk, I was staying on the front dormer in terms of the fenestration, the double window, were any comments brought up there?
No. You want to change it?
Well, obviously.
Because you just got approved, so I don't know where you're going with it.
No, I just wanted to know if there were any comments. I think I hear what you're saying, to kind of keep the cheek walls the same, kind of match what's happening at the below the sill to the break of the roof.
Right.
And as far as the I looked at those kind of I don't know, those pediments, one over the barrel and over that, and I don't like the subway because I feel it just compresses those areas. How would you feel about going with board to board siding, which is the detail in those smaller pediments?
I would be fine with having siding over it personally. I don't know what the other board members would think. You could also,
if you did pediment, a lot of classical or traditional pediments had what's called board on board, which means that's like shiplapped. So there's no reveal at all. And after time, it would crack or move. If you just put those boards, stack them on top of each other over each one of those pediments, would be a nice subtle detail.
Bill, we're saying the same thing. What I'm calling flush board to board would be instead of having a clapboard shadow, it would be flush board to board.
Correct.
And once we're kind of creating that material in those 2 smaller pediments, I would then not have a subrake in either of them.
Correct.
And then on the gable, I mean, obviously a Western Reserve detail would be to have the side or clapboards following the roof slope, which is another kind of Western Reserve detail that might be fun to investigate.
That's correct.
Bill, maybe we could talk about this with Gary offline, because it was already approved with the notations that they said, and I've got good notes. I think that we can discuss this afterwards.
All right, and I again believe the problem was, I'm not sure why, but I didn't get an original email, but when I got the second invite, I clicked on, but for some reason I kept raising my hand and I couldn't be found.
I'm not sure, but I think we've got it handled. So maybe we can talk after this.
All right. Well, George, Dr. King, Phil, all of you, Bill, it's a pleasure seeing you all again. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hopefully the next time that'll work out better. Technically.
Next time you'll see me in my nice, Tommy Bahama shirt and not my cat.
There you go.
Okay, back to 35 Maple Street, Junker residence.
Correct. So there are 2 aspects of this project and or change to the house. And one is on the side elevation facing Walnut Street of the house, where there are an existing 3 garage doors. And our intent is to convert the nearest garage door to the house back into living space, including a side entry door with a small overhang and some functional powder room, laundry, just basically support for the kitchen area there. Susan Junker's online with us. Her parents are moving into the house, so we're trying to accommodate them and potentially, you know, 1 floor living if that were to be required in the future. And then the second aspect of the project is I believe replacing what was a porch underneath an existing overhang. This house has some odd, had an odd addition done, kind of a 70s addition, created a big back overhang. I'm pretty sure they had a porch there, which is now gone because it just doesn't make sense not to have it, or maybe they didn't, but we wanted to add a porch under that overhang. So you're seeing that on the back.
You're eliminating the stoop.
Pardon?
You're eliminating the stoop and raising a platform, basically.
Creating a platform underneath what is that overhang, right? Right. So if we, and the reason, and then this is actually going to go to Board of Zoning Appeals, because just as a hangover effect from having this garage right on the property line, that we cut the buildings apart and all that stuff. So we got a variance for all that, but now this is a existing non-conforming building, so we're going to go back for a variance in late July. So if we go to the elevations, Rob, I want to show you those, and then actually I have an alternate to show you as well. So that, yeah, both of those, right. So we are tight in that corner, that, and the door is fairly tight to the corner, but we wanted a little longer overhang. I had added a window in there and we kind of rethought that. So I have a slightly different elevation. This is a preliminary. So basically that window could be replaced with a lantern and the door moved over a little. I can show you that by sharing the screen in a minute. I don't want to get too hung up on that. And then looking at that rear elevation, which is really very private, since the garage extends, you know, the full property. You really can't see that from anywhere except the neighboring property. We'd have that porch. We're trying to mitigate some structural issues. The existing posts underneath that rear overhang, which you can see in the bottom left of this drawing sheet, those tall posts have barely any structure in them. They don't have good footings below them. I mean, this thing I think is hanging right now. And then that long structure above, that's the existing addition from, I believe, sometime early 70s, likely based on the windows. When we come back with final, we actually may show also some window changes underneath that porch, and trying to get the windows underneath the porch to be more consistent. But the porch itself is what we're after. So that's where this is at. Oh, and then the window. So I have 2 things to show you. If I could share the screen, Rob, if you stop sharing.
Sure. Can we, Christie,
I'll
can you
share.
allow George to share his screen?
Yes, George should have access to share his screen currently.
And then you're just going to see this, but when I go to, so you can see we're taking this much closer. This is a picture from the summer of 1938, which did show a door where we're putting a door back, interestingly, and a window where we're putting a window. So I think we're actually moving closer. We are adding a small overhang versus, I think this door might be recessed slightly into the house. And then this is just a new, can you all see that?
Yep.
This is just a slightly revised elevation, just trying to tweak around with that. You know, we're squeezing that entryway in there. So that was our thought for that side elevation with the matching window. Very close to, might be a couple inches away from where there used to be a very similar window in 1938. And that's what I have. I will stop sharing if you guys are good with that. Unless you want to see that historic photo again, or are you good with that?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Can you go back to the existing photos one more time? I want to look at some.
Oh yeah, so Rob, if you wouldn't mind going back.
I'm working on that now.
Thanks.
Thank you.
There we go.
Oh yeah, so we're replacing this. We're actually eliminating that man door and that garage door that's in the middle picture. Right. And we're also gonna diminish the amount of paving there. Get a little more green, just enough walkway to get it into
The two second-story windows that are straddling the chimney, what are those windows? Are they 2/2s also that are half hidden, or they almost look like casements from here?
They are casements. That's around the corner from what you see in that rear existing photograph.
Yeah.
That's part of the same, I think.
Right, we're not tackling that right now.
They're already casements.
Are you?
They are
Which
existing
picture you're referring to, Steve?
The two windows straddling the chimney that are peeking over the roof. The second-story windows straddling the chimney.
Oh, right. Yeah, those are back behind that chimney. So you're looking at something that's about 18, 20 feet back. Really doesn't have much presence, but yes, it's part of that existing second floor construction.
What's up there? Is that a bedroom or looks like a porch?
It's living space. I think it would probably be used as possibly a spare bedroom. Right now it's kind of long and open. There's a bathroom at the end of it. So we're taking on a lot of renovations in the house. So we're not trying to hit that yet.
Call it a flex room.
It's a flex.
Everything's a flex room.
That's right.
Well, I personally like the newer rendition of the side entrance with the eliminating that window. I think that it was just crammed in there.
Yeah, it was
tightly.
crammed in. I agree.
And with a light in the door, there's going to be plenty of light back in that little space. And I like how you've handled the porch. I always like fixing stuff that's broke, and that's definitely broke. So I think it's a great start. And
Yeah, I think that Walnut Street elevation, I mean, there is room for improvement. And I think that this is a really good direction to go. I think I keep coming back to is the door and the stoop over it related to the window's height. And I'm wondering, and I defer to the architects on the board to give me some feedback on this. Is there a way to make that entry a little more substantial to balance out what's going on in the rest of that elevation. Maybe raise the stoop height. Something's bothering me about that door.
Which, are you on the rear elevation?
No, I'm on the Walnut Street elevation, the door, and he's put a stoop with supported by brackets.
You're saying it seems too low.
There's something that's not balancing to me there. Maybe maybe it seems too low. Or there looks like there's an opportunity for a really cool entry, like a double door, like make more of a statement with that entry. I'm trying to pull something off that plane. I mean, I know you have a doghouse going on, but maybe to balance the doghouse. Just
Why is that doghouse there? I must have missed it.
It's there.
If you look at the plan,
yeah,
there really isn't space for.
There's not. Okay.
There's hardly enough space for a single door, let alone a double door. It's really it's a first floor.
The floor plan. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Well, we can.
Will you just look at that? There's something that's not balancing, and it might be the height of the stoop, or I don't know.
Maybe it's the height of the roof. If you could push that up a little bit.
A little bit.
I think it really reflects what's going on there. You know, that you're coming into a side entrance, even though it's a street facing elevation. It's really a side entrance to the house, and I don't take any exceptions to what George has come up with. How about you, Bill?
I think it's a nice start too. I like the back facade, the improvements. I think he did a nice job on the side elevation. I have no problem with that hood, the door and the window, or just the door and the light. I think that the top of that roof, as long as it hits, which it appears to at the head of the window, then that datum line of the siding above can just go right across, which I think completes that composition. My only concern would be is what's the side elevation of that hood, which I know that's something you would do in the following final drawings, but I think it's a nice start. It looks good.
Correct. We will detail that and show it to you, and I'll look at seeing if we can raise it up a teeny bit too, because I think that might help support the weight of that kind of long, long elevation there. Wendy was getting at.
What is the doghouse again? I mean, it's there because.
So crazily enough, that's a dining room, which is remaining a dining room for the present time. And that's actually a built-in
sideboard, China
sideboard that they just built right out onto the street. It's wild. I don't know when that happened, but
we need one there. We're just gonna build it out.
It's an anomalous element, that's for sure.
Okay.
Hey guys, this is Susan. So yeah, funny enough, they have the historical notes that say they did that to put a piece of furniture in back in the 30s. So the maid could walk around the dining table.
Right.
Okay.
Functional solution.
Exactly.
Yep.
So I move for preliminary approval with notes.
Second.
All right. Childs?
Yes.
King?
Yes.
Naylor?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll bring it back, and obviously we have to get through that variance meeting.
Joan, did you get all the notes for that motion?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right, next on the list is 133 Elm Court, the Schrader residence, proposing a demolition of the existing non-covered porch and converting that to a covered porch.
I am getting attendees online. Please wait.
We're going to get down to some plans.
Matt, I've promoted you to a panelist. Penelope is also as a panelist. You're welcome to unmute yourself and start your videos.
Hello, can you hear me?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can everyone hear me? This is Matt.
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, good morning, everyone. I'll do just a run through of the revisions from the summation from the meeting minutes and walk everyone through the revisions. So one of the comments was the cadence. So on sheet A7 of the south elevation, we centered the columns onto the house, versus the windows.
Right.
We added the base cap to the column base. The returns to the gable were softened up a bit from those pork chops, kind of reduced that mass. And then from the sheet A6, we softened up that gable a bit in the sense that before the eave, that eave was much more substantial, but bringing it back in line with matching the existing eave, which we did to begin with, softened that up a bit from the previous iteration that we had in the preliminary. The another comment was the elevation drop off. If you can go back to sheet 8.7. So what that represents, that grade line, is what we have at that area at the house itself. And what we're proposing to do is to build up that area, if you're looking at the house to the right, with some fill, and then adding some stone to prevent any of that erosion. And we're restoring the grade. If there's some photos that I added as well to show what's kind of going on there. And then the other side will be cutting just a bit to get to that lattice work, and then cutting in just if there's a swale, and everything slopes to the side of the house or to the front.
Mhm.
And then on that initial sheet, I think it's C.1, shows what actually is going on there. Photographs, we've added those at the very bottom, so you can see what's going on. You can see where there must have been an existing, the grade previously was. So to prevent that erosion, if that's exactly what it was, or it was cut down at that point, we're going to add that stone.
I thought this was a nice project, and I think it's improved based on your responses from the last meeting.
Great.
So I was in favor of it before, and I really like it now. But I know that other board members had thoughts about it, so. Yeah.
I agree. I think it's been, I'm glad that you made the changes that you made. I think it reads better, that reverse gable punched out a little bit, helps sort of accentuate the front stoop or the stairs coming in. And I'm glad that you addressed the grade. I suspect it's just over time the backfill settled, and
yeah,
you're bringing it back in. And as long as you're tall enough that you can, or the distance 3 feet out is less than 24 inches, you don't even need a rail. But it is kind of a slope that I would want a rail just in case.
But the nice thing is the rail can be less than the 36 inches, which
exactly, yeah,
definitely looks, it's far better. It's more rail you could, maybe even sit on, or,
yeah,
lean against.
I still have my same comments from last time. I disagree. I don't think there should be a reverse gable on this. If you look at any style, this type of house in the past, whether it's the south, the east, the west. I totally agree you should have a porch. I'm not saying not to have a porch. I think it just should be in context and in keeping with architectural character. I don't think the big long shed roof is appropriate. I do more of a flat roof. I would not put the reverse gable. I would not put the dentals. The dentals are way out of proportion. Don't go with this style of house. That's what's called an ionic order. It totally doesn't go with this style. I think I'd study the proportions of the column and the entablature.
Bill, this is Penelope Schrader. I understand that, but also I feel pretty strongly that, you know, putting the architecture, you know, profession aside, I think the reverse gable just, you know, adds a nice look to the porch. And as far as the dentals are concerned, if they were not on the original house, I don't think we would put it on, but we are trying to match whatever was on the house already. So without it on the porch side, it just looks imbalanced. So we really took your comments to heart from last meeting, and you know, went through that with Matt a few times and came up with this design that we really think it compromises what, you know, architecturally is correct versus what we want a house to look like without, you know, offending the neighbors and everybody else.
And
yeah, actually, this is Robert. I have to say that Matt tried, I don't know, about 5 or 6 different iterations in order to attempt to soften this look. Yeah, you have to bear in mind something, which is this is a house on the corner. And so when you drive by the house, you see the side of the house and then the front, and there's like 50 feet of lawn in front of the house, between the house and the street. So actually the house doesn't have the look that is shown in the south elevation, really doesn't appear that way. It's quite a bit further back from the road. And what we attempted to do was to add a porch to the house, because we all really do want to have a porch, but make it relatively consistent with the rest of the style of the houses in this subdivision entirely. So getting back, for example, to the dentals, many houses in this subdivision have dentals, and I'm not either for or against it. We're just attempting to match the existing style in the addition of the porch to integrate it into the design of the house, because we want the porch not to look like it was just added on to the residence as an afterthought, but is more well integrated into the overall design and feel of the house. So that's why we did what we did. I think that having just a flat porch with no gable would make the house look very boxy. If you look at the side elevation, you can see that it's pretty tall and square as it is. And if you can imagine turning the corner and seeing what the south elevation would look like, I think that just that the gable kind of breaks up the boxiness of the house. It adds a little bit more style to it. That was our thought.
I would just say that's well said, but I would also say that, you know, let's not get too correct with this. These are like neo-colonials from the 70s.
That's correct. That's correct.
And you know, they're using a little more freedom on this porch, but I think they're doing it in an attractive way. So I'm not as concerned with correctness. You know, I think those aren't neo-colonial posts, and the wall may not be something you'd see, but it looks great. And you know, I've seen some interesting porches around Chagrin. One interesting aspect of porches in Chagrin is that over this much time, since the 1880s, you know, you're really seeing the third or fourth porch that someone put on houses, and sometimes you know, you've got a Italianate house and then they put a porch on in the Craftsman period, and you get a Craftsman porch on your Italianate or East Lake style house. And so especially given that this is not a historic area, and it's not necessarily, doesn't necessarily need to be a historic addition. I just think it's well designed and attractive and gives them what they want. And I would see no reason that we wouldn't let them pursue that, and it's going to be great.
Thank you, George.
Thank you, George.
Thank you.
But getting back to you, Bill, I do understand your input and I appreciate your strictness. And we did really work pretty hard to figure out a way to maintain the feel that we wanted and make it more consistent with the overall design of the property. But I think that what George says is correct. I mean, there's quite a lot of diversity in the housing in Chagrin Falls, and we're attempting to make this porch consistent with the style of this particular development here in Elm Court.
Can you go back to the front elevation one more time? Is that pediment open on the reverse pediment or reverse gable? So you're leaving that open, and the porch underneath, is that open as well, or is there a flat ceiling on it?
There's a flat ceiling. It is broken at the gable and it goes straight back. And there's a reflected ceiling plan that should illustrate that. But there's a flat ceiling in the other areas under the shed roof.
Flat ceiling is, there's a flat ceiling on either side, and then
Correct.
the pediment is open to the entry.
Correct.
I mean, overall, I understand the neo-colonial component of this, or, you know, the 70s was kind of doing its own thing in some ways. But I might suggest filling that face of that pediment in. Because what's happening is, this is what you're breaking from the tradition of colonial, or you're combining different elements of colonial, but there's almost a contemporary thing going on there. That's why where are the dentals on the other part of the house?
If you're looking at it to the right, they're in line with the new dentals.
They're running along that same
Can
Right.
you zoom in?
portion of the house.
Yes.
Okay.
That'd be really helpful. Yeah, even more.
There you go.
Yeah, it's hard to pick
Okay.
up. There we go. Yeah, I mean, I'm
All right, I'm tempted. I'm willing to go with the design. Now, this helps me see this close up like this. Yeah.
And I would also say, if you're going to study one last thing, I mean, I agree with Bill. You could or probably should drop the dentals from the beam there, and I think it would still be fine with the house. So that's the only element I would. But you know, I'd say that as a consideration. Like, just think about it.
We actually did look at just that aspect, George. I think that Matt did have one design revision where he removed the dentals from the porch. Actually, Matt came over and looked at these dentals in more detail because he had them in the wrong position on the original drawings. So he corrected that. And then we looked at a revision where there was no dental on the porch, but the dental remained on the rest of the house. It just looked odd. It doesn't look as if it makes the porch look more like an add-on as opposed to be integrated in the house. So even though I understand you're concerned about the dentals, having the dental in the porch actually brings it in to look like it's a original part of the house, which was the whole idea.
Well, I was just bringing that up as a consideration.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know, you can even look at it as you build it. So look at them again.
Yeah, we'll take a look at it. Thank you.
And then also, Wendy, we did look, because one of the comments that came from the preliminary review was that open gable going all the way back. And Matt did a few design iterations where we attempted to fill that space in, like have a curved a curved ceiling in that area, for example. And the problem that we ran into was the more we worked on the gable, the more it made the gable stand out too much. And we tried to soften the gables as much as possible. We want to have the gable protection for the entrance and kind of bring out where the entrance is, where I identify it, but not make it so strong of a design that it pulls the eye. And the more we worked on the gable, the more we realized that we had to stop working on the gable and make it as simple and small as possible to the eye.
Sometimes owners will flip through a bunch of magazines and pick up elements from all different, here, this is cute and this is cute. They put it together and they end up with a mongrel house. This is not that at all. The elements that you've drawn together in a neighborhood that's made up of different things. I'm not hung up on the dental one way or the other, quite frankly. So I think it works. I think the details that you brought together do not look contrived. It doesn't look like a mongrel house. I think it's very nice.
Thank you, Stephen.
Great, thank you.
Is there a motion?
I move to approve as presented.
Second.
Can I just ask a question, just because I have no idea? What are the dentals? Can you point those out to me?
Oh, yeah. Good question.
Oh, just because I'd
Right
like to
there.
know.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay,
Little
thank you.
I learned that from last meeting, John.
Okay, thank
right.
you.
So
Dentals were originated in West Virginia, where people are missing every other tooth.
Yeah,
Coming from a dentist, right?
by the way,
Right.
By the way, Dr. King, when I was making the notes of just a kind of a funny aside, just when I was writing down the notes from the preliminary review, I misspelled dentals as being dentals, like teeth dentals, and they are DENTILS.
same root.
Okay, Childs,
What's that? Sorry.
I need, for the vote, I need it, Childs,
No.
Naylor,
Yes.
King.
Yes.
All right, you passed.
Great, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Good luck
for
with that
your-
project.
Thank you.
your considerate and hard work on this.
Thanks, excellent.
We're good, right?
Yep, we're fine.
Okay, let me get set up here with some.
Oh, yeah.
John and Tim, for the next project, if you would unmute and start your videos. And if there are any other presenters, please raise your hand in the Zoom platform.
The next project here is for 271 High Street. This is a proposed demolition of the existing home and submittal for a new dwelling.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Morning, John.
And not that I'm trying to kiss up to you right away, but this is the third digital ARB I have done so far in this pandemic, and this actually seems to work really well. So nicely done, guys.
Thanks.
Anyway, you saw this, I believe, back in January, and the basic design has remained. We've worked out a few details and finessed things a little bit. But essentially, this is a house that, like the existing house, will not be seen from the street. And as I mentioned before, basically we took a kind of a minimalist Western Reserve approach to it. You might, the color rendering, the quick color rendering might be the easiest one to look at.
Oh, yeah.
I think it actually, well, I don't know how you combine them, so it might be the beginning or it might be the end.
Let's see that if there is one. Keep going.
Must be at the end. I did see it there momentarily. No,
Uh-oh.
interesting.
Hold on, let me,
You can share your screen if we need to.
Yeah, I did. That's funny. I did see that it was on the presentation at one point. Again, it's not that critical. I do have it up and I can share.
yeah, if you could share it, that'd be great. Just making sure I didn't miss anything, yeah. I don't know why I don't have it here.
Oh, okay.
Let me stop my screen sharing, and then Christy, if you could enable Mr. Williams.
He's enabled.
Okay. Wow. Look at that. So the lower elevation is what will face the street. But again, all you will see is probably nothing but at most the top 2 feet of the standing seam metal roof. The top elevation is the rear elevation that looks back over the wooded area. So this is essentially what you saw before and gave preliminary approval. The fenestration changed slightly. We added more mullions in, horizontal mullions, just to get operable windows in. As much as we like those pure glass planes, they aren't really functional when the client wants to be able to open a window to get fresh air. The only real change, there are 2 small ones. We extended the garage by 6 feet to allow for a larger mudroom. And then we are projecting in that flat entry roof area, there is a projecting roof plane that is cantilevered, thanks to Isaac Lewin. Cantilevered with essentially a glass corner there. So as you're driving up the driveway, the garage is not really visible, and the front entry is most prominent. You'll see a glass corner, so at night it will be nicely illuminated, and then there is the projecting flat roof to provide shelter for when somebody's standing at the door. Other than that, we're using the same materials, which is the 4-inch visible hardy siding on the gable roof ends, excuse me, and a 9-inch visible shiplap siding on the flat roof areas. And they're a Colby contemporary wood window with aluminum wrap, and it's a anodized black, a dark black finish. Standing seam will also be black. Everything else is essentially white.
What is the glass itself?
It is a double pane insulated that will have UV protection in it, but it's not tinted. It will be transparent glass.
Thank you.
So we could keep looking at them. It might be good to change the screen sharing back again. I like your rendering. I do want to say, I mean, I like the front of the house, but I love the composition of the back of the house. I just think this is a really nice, tight design, and it's a very, very attractive contemporary dwelling. I mean,
Ready to go back to my screen then?
I
yeah,
appreciate
let's
that.
go back to Rob. So if you stop sharing.
Oh, okay. Stop share.
There we go.
There.
Oh yeah. So go to maybe the site plan, since we've looked at the elevations. Right. Yeah, you're coming up. You're really getting to the garage last. It's nice. It's not It's not dominating anything. I mean,
It's tucked back, and that's
yeah,
intentional.
I think it's all good. I don't have any comments. I think it's a really nice project.
This is the first time I've seen this. I wasn't at the meeting, and I think it's well done. I think the massing's really well done. The proportions, the glass, solid void. I like the project. You did a nice job.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Since I live next door, I would say I agree. Frankly, the concern for me is not really, for me, it's for the neighbor who lives immediately in front of this house.
Yeah, if you
This
scroll,
house kind of goes up and over a hill, and the
Right.
driveway comes around, and you have to go down to get to the driveway, and there's a retaining wall that's being proposed, and I think there's an elevation of it that I just want to, if you could get down to Isaac Lewin's drawings.
Wait,
oh, that was it.
you just go up.
That would be CO2 and CO3, I believe.
Yes. CO3 shows the retaining wall and the elevation. So if you scroll down, there we go.
So what you're looking at would be what, who's looking at that elevation?
That's the elevation you would see from the driveway.
From the garage door.
From the neighbors, they will, again, you can kind of see, and I can't point, you can see the dashed line at the top of the elevation. That's the grade on the other side. So they will mostly see anywhere from a 6 to 12 inch retaining wall that can be landscaped to make the retaining wall disappear. So it's really not visible at all.
Yeah, she has always looked at, or the people who have lived there over time have always looked at, kind of the roof of this house, and now we're sort of imposing upon them, and I understand that this is a really great solution. I just want to kind of make the impact for the new neighbor, or for the neighbor in front, to be as minimal as possible. It sounds like that's what you've done.
It is as minimal, yes, as possible. And I'm sure the Callahans would be happy to provide some landscaping and decorative landscaping that would really conceal. I think,
yeah, buffer it.
Worst case scenario, you've got 12 inch exposed. Mostly it's 6 inch exposed.
What is the, I can't read everything on that. What's the material of the wall?
It is both the foundation, or the retaining wall, and the foundation for the house will be poured concrete with a dark gray stain.
Dark gray stain. And are you working with the jointing of the wall and kind of controlling the aesthetic of that as a?
We are, to the point of what we've requested is we're not looking for an obsessively smooth finish. We want it smooth, but we're also okay seeing, if they use plywood, I love to see that plywood grain on the concrete. But we're not filling those joints so that everything is perfectly smooth. It will be smooth. From 10 feet away, it's going to look like a dark gray wall. But yes, we are very conscious of how that looks. And in this case, the clients even desired that concrete look and the dark gray stain.
Oh, and so the driveway grade that we're seeing on the wall's not as tall as it's shown there, because the driveway grade is, you're showing down to the footing depth.
Yes.
Yeah,
I think that's what he's saying. Yeah. The grades are shown kind of on that proposed elevation. It says finished grade of the wall.
Right.
You can see it kind of slopes up and then slopes down and then back up again.
But even the driveway side isn't that tall.
Isn't that tall, no. You can see that maybe a little better if you look to the lower left at the section.
Yeah.
On the right-hand side, it shows the grade that from the neighbor, and the left-hand side is the grade from our driveway.
Mhm.
And there's, I mean, you can see what, this is the only time I've used a civil engineer for a residential project, but it was warranted because of the idiosyncrasies of this site. But what we're doing, you can see, is collecting water in the corner of that. So there'll be a very nice decorative landscaping area in that corner.
Yeah, you have the ability to landscape quite a bit in front of this wall, depending on what your client wants, right? Great.
Yeah.
I move for final approval.
You second the motion?
Can I add one more kind of issue that I would be concerned about if I had children? That wall is pretty tall, and the Callahans might want to consider some sort of fence incorporated into that, along with landscaping, because it might be only 1 foot on the one side, but it's 7 feet on the other side and down to concrete, or down to more landscaping, whatever. Could be considered an attractive nuisance. So
good point, Bill. I made a note about that, and that's something that that we can discuss.
Yeah.
If it's landscaped properly on the low end with a nice cushioned fall, that could be fine. I'm joking. No, that's a good point. We will look into that as we finalize.
Those grandchildren can make it 6 feet. They'll be fine.
Okay.
I think we have a motion and a second.
Okay, Childs,
Yes.
Naylor,
Yes.
King.
Yes.
Nice job, John. Look
Thank
forward
you very
to
much. We
started.
appreciate it, and we're excited about moving forward now.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
We there now? Let's see.
Final projects.
I have Mr. Savelli calling in. I will unmute.
71 South Main Street, proposed retaining wall along the side of the driveway. And the work has already started on this.
Jeffrey, can you hear us?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah, we had started on it, and that was, again, I had spoke to Terry, and that was my own ignorance. I just figured ripping it out and replacing it, I could go ahead and start it, but obviously I was wrong on that, so that's my fault of not submitting for the permit beforehand, so I apologize for that. Yeah, pretty much just ripped out the existing retaining wall, which was an old concrete wall that was falling apart and cracked, and I needed to redo my driveway anyway. So I figured I would kill two birds with one stone and get it all done. So just basically replacing it with a unilock retaining wall block, which will be roughly 34 inches for about the first 50 feet of the wall, and then it'll drop down to about 24 inches for the last 70 feet of the wall. Building on the back side, obviously a drainage pipe running behind it, and then filled with like a 304 and a wash gravel. Obviously a 304 is what turns into the concrete to give it its base, and then the wash gravel behind it for the water to run through it.
And it's the same height as the old wall?
Yes, it is. In the front, it is about maybe 3.5 inches higher than the old wall was. But the backside is pretty much the same height, but it is moved out away from the driveway about, at the front, it's at the exact same spot starting, and then about halfway back on the house, it's moved back about 8 inches. So about 8 inches wider, it will make the driveway, which my property line where it is it's still about 4 feet short of the property line, about halfway up the house, and then back by the garage, it's still 7 feet off of my property line.
Block is the footer.
Pardon me?
The block itself is the footer. There's no footer under the block.
Right, there's the 304 gravel is what, obviously turns into a concrete, so that's the base, and then the block starts on top of that.
Fine to me.
Yeah, it's probably an aesthetic improvement from, we don't know what was.
Yeah, by far.
Um,
By far. This is the one part of the house that actually drove me absolutely crazy. So.
Yeah, I don't have any comments. I think this, I mean, you're using that as a cap. It's capped like the picture you just showed us.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. With the picture that I submitted to you is the exact color, the cap, pretty much just like on the walk when you come up near the library. It's the exact same block that is used right there. I mean, it's exactly the same. That Unilock Pisa wall, that same color with the cap on it.
Very good.
See no questions. Move to approve.
Second,
Right, Naylor,
yes.
Childs,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
all right.
I also did have on there, and I don't know if it's a different thing or anything, but permit for the apron on the driveway. I had submitted for all of it. I don't know if that's through you guys as well or
That's not for
what,
us.
but
No, that's just a simple permit application.
okay.
Yeah,
All right, I just wanted to make sure.
Yep.
You do have to have it inspected.
Yes.
The apron?
Yes.
The excavation before you pour.
Pre-pour inspection.
Okay. No problem.
Okay, Joan, do you have all the notes you need?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. That's all we have on the agenda for today. Steve.
All
Thanks,
right.
everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Long
Good
one.
meeting.
Again. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Goodbye.